Paratinder. Is that stuff any good? Alright, so some of you may have seen the build videos I released over the weekend where we made this little knife. This is a really small, the idea behind it was like an ultra lightweight running / cycling, hiking type of a knife. Something that we can carry that's not going to be too large and in the way, but still a decent sized blade there for an emergency situation. Seeing as this was an emergency type blade, I decided to do a paracord handle wrap for a couple of reasons. The first one being that I've obviously got extra cordage should I need it. The second of all, the cordage that I used is this product called a Paratinder. What sets Paratinder apart from other cordages is that it's got the regular strands as regular 550 cord, but it also has this additional cord in the center that's supposed to be a tinder source. So the idea behind this is I've got cordage as well as tinder should I ever need to start a fire. Now during the build video, I did try testing this product really quickly, and to be honest, I wasn't overly impressed with it seemed to take a long time to ignite and it didn't burn that long. So what I'd like to do today is take it over to the workbench and see how well it actually ignites. You know, if you set yourself up with different emergency gear, survival kits, and it's smart to do if you're going to be adventuring and stuff like that, you want to be prepared. But if you don't actually test the products and the tools that you carry, you do yourself a bit of a disservice because essentially it's a gamble. You don't know for sure that you can rely on it, that you can count on it. So if I want to count on this as both cordage as well as a potential fire starting source right here, I need to make sure it actually works. So let's head over to the workbench and we'll take a closer look at this stuff. All right, so what is Paratinder? So this stuff right here, a company called UST, Ultimate Survival Technology, I believe makes it. Full disclosure, this is not paid by them, endorsed by them. I bought this myself. I had one comment in the video there, somebody said, oh, don't buy outdoors products or survival products from Walmart, and I never knew that they sell this at Walmart. I'm not sure if they do in Canada, but from what I understand, the US they do. I actually picked this up at Mountain Equipment Co-op, which is the Canadian version of REI. So let's get into this stuff a bit. When you first look at it, it feels a little thicker than regular paracord, which I actually like. I really like the feel of this cordage. And then this color, I'm not sure what colors they make, but I thought orange is actually ideal for a knife, especially a running knife. You know, when you're running, you want to be high vis. And then also, knives in general, they're nice when you can see them. If you ever set them down when you're working in the woods or something like that, it's nice not to lose your knife. I've lost a couple of knives that had camo on them, and I'm just choked. I still know where I lost them, but I can't find them. They're probably like under 3 inches of dirt by now. But all right, so let's break this stuff down a little bit. Oh, my beard is catching on my microphone. It's driving me nuts. We'll just see what all is inside there. So it's just like regular 550 cord. You've got an outer sheath, and then you've got some inner strands. We can pull this all apart. Okay, and let's see what we have for the number of strands. Go 1,
2, 3, well, 4, 5, 6.
7 strands, just like the regular paracord. And then we've got this inner strand, and this is the flammable portion. It's kind of this reddish stuff. It's got like a wax type coating on it or something. And I'm thinking the best way to do this is kind of pull it apart and create a little bit of surface area. So I'm going to cut this again. Let's just kind of see roughly how much this would do. Also, I'm going to grab a little steel plate here so we can light our fire on there without burning our little workbench down. So we're just going to kind of break this apart, pull these strands apart. I'm not sure how carried away with this you need to get, but you know, just like any other tinder source, probably the more and the finer the materials, the fibers you can get, the better. So we're going to break this down completely. So now that we've got that all broken down, let's kind of make a little bit of a nest with it here. I don't want to really squish it and flatten it because I want to keep little gaps in there for air and then also for little sparks to be able to fall into. So we've got a little pile of it right there. Now let's just see how well. In the video that I made the knife in, I didn't break it down this well. I didn't get such a nice nest, so this will be interesting to see if it's any different. I'm just using a light my fire ferro rod and a striker here, so let's just see how well this takes a spark. Got a little ember there. It's not igniting though. I'm kind of disappointed with that. So you've got a little ember there. It's thinking about it. Come on, come on. No, it burned out. That burned out. Also, this would be a good time to point out, the more you strike at it, the darker the color gets. And I'm not sure why that is, but you kind of see that it's changed color. Like this outside kind of whiter part is stuff where I don't think we've had many sparks on. This darker part has all had sparks hit it, but it's just changed color, hasn't yet ignited. We will keep going though. Come on. Let's make this a little tighter, I guess. It's not wowing me yet, that's for sure. Come on, are you kidding me? We've got an ember in there. There'll be an ember, it'll be red, but it will not ignite. We've got a little ember going there, but it doesn't ignite. Come on, buddy. Nope, it's out. It's out. Wow. We can get little embers, we can get a little smoke, but we can't get ignition. We can't get a flame. Come on, are you kidding me? Oh my word. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm not wowed by this product yet. Not in any way, shape, or form. Let's get a bigger rod and a really good striker here. I gotta scrape some of this off. Okay, you better take with that. Oh, finally. Finally, we got something to happen. You know what? With something small, lightweight, and easy to carry like this, boy, it sure does not like to start, does it? Now, I had quite a few people suggest that I lace a ferro rod into here and then wrap that, and I actually had thought about that, and I still think that might be a really good idea. But my one concern is that this is a pretty decent quality fire starter right here, and if I can't get this cord to take with this, it might be difficult with a rod that doesn't have a handle on it that's like that big. I don't know. Let's try this again. We're going to give this thing an honest evaluation here. As it stands, I would not consider this to be a viable source for tinder, especially in an emergency situation. You know, you think about it, in an emergency, everything has got to be so much worse. And I can only imagine, I mean, you know, I'll go out and I've done, ever since I was a little kid, like I would do survival camps. We did one where we had to camp out in the winter and make a shelter, and we spent a night outside, and I think it was got down to minus 16 Celsius, and I was 12, and we had to make our own shelter, and I did. I actually stayed warm all night long, and so I've always been into making and practicing survival, and mostly if you're out hunting and hiking in the woods and you get lost and you need to, you know, hunker down or something like that, I enjoy it. But even though I've done it and I've practiced it, I could only imagine that in a real emergency situation, everything's got to be much more difficult. So even if you can, you know, even if we can get this thing started eventually here in the workbench while there's no pressure, what's it going to be like in a real emergency? That's my concern with it. So let's go ahead and we'll take this small ferro rod again. It's actually starting to hurt my hands. We'll see if we can have any better luck with this little thing. Really, like this stuff is kind of useless with a small little ferro rod, in my opinion. Now if we switch back up to this big beast, see, even that, there we go. And again, in an emergency situation, I'm sure doing all of this stuff would be so much more difficult. You know, if you're cold, your dexterity is not going to be there. If you're injured, you know, if you got a cut in your hand, it makes all this so much more difficult. So just kind of got to keep all these things in mind. So let's see how it works with a large ferro rod and this little knife right here. Again, I have a hard time doing this because I'm on a steel plate. Come on, we've got embers there. It doesn't take. I need to put a glove on. I'm hurting myself here. Look at this. We get embers on there, but it doesn't ignite. Oh, finally. Okay, so, you know what? I guess we can affect ignition with a large ferro rod using the knife. But this is a lot of weight. This probably weighs 2-3 times what the knife does, so I don't know. To tell you the truth, I was expecting a lot more from this cord. Let's try, just as a comparison, let's try some fat wood. Got a piece of fat wood here. Let's just try some of these shavings. I think fat wood is one of the great options for starting fires. It's light, it's inexpensive. It depends where you live, you can harvest your own. And it's all natural, which is nice, and it holds up well to water as well. So just so you can have a comparison. A lot of people know fat wood, a lot of people use fat wood, so this will give them kind of a guide to compare it to, hopefully. So we've just got a little bit of fat wood right there. Should be enough to take a spark. Again, we're just seeing how well we can actually get a flame. So let's go back to this here, to a very small ferro rod, just see what kind of happens here. Look at that. Fat wood burns much, much faster, much easier than tinder cord. Okay, we'll try this one again. Look at that. I think that's pretty clear that a fat wood is much better of a tinder source than para-tinder. Well, I would say that is fairly conclusive if you ask me. I think this tinder cord is an absolute flop. Yes, it will burn, it will ignite, but it is not an ideal, it's not a good emergency source of tinder, in my opinion. With a small ferro rod, we could not get this to take, and in fact, I had one of those little strands, the little small part, it actually had an ember on it, and the ember burnt for about 3/8 of an inch and then went out. You know, most tinder sources, if it's decent, if you get an ember on there, that's a pretty good sign of hope. That means that there's a good chance you can get this thing to take off. Not so with the tinder cord. The only way we could get it to go is when we used a really big ferro rod. We scraped off a big chunk of that rod and had that burning there for a little while before it would actually ignite. You even saw the difference compared to a simple piece of fat wood. This stuff took off with one strike from the very small ferrocerium striker. And you know what? For the weight that this thing is, even if I had a small piece like this, I think I would be in much better shape than having this entire cordage of the tinder cord. Anyways, figure I'd test it out, seeing as we put this on the knife. I'm still going to leave it on. I still think it's a good cord wrap, and I like the color and everything else, but I now know not to look at this as a potential fire for me if I'm in an emergency situation. Well, thanks for coming along, guys, while I tested this stuff. I was just really curious about it, and I wanted to see what happened, and now we know. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. You can do that by clicking on the little circle right here, and there's also a couple other interesting playlists here you might be interested in. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Cheers.